One was a recluse who built a religion out of his own face and starved his country to feed his weapons program. The other was a charmer who walked across college campuses with a fake cast on his arm asking pretty women to help him carry his books. One killed millions through famine and policy. The other killed 30 in person with a tire iron. Both were sociopaths in custom-built costumes. Both got away with it for as long as the costume worked. Only one of them advances. Tonight, Kim Jong-il against Theodore Robert Bundy. The Hermit against the Charmer. Round of 16. Match 7. Kim Jong-il arrives in this round as the champion of Episode 3, where he defeated Saddam Hussein on the strength of his nuclear weapons, his China alliance, and the regime that has now lasted 3 generations. Ted Bundy arrives as the champion of Episode 2, where he defeated Jeffrey Dahmer by his charm, his reach across 7 states, and his ability to evade the system for over a decade. Tonight, the dictator who needed a country and the killer who needed only a smile. One question: whose costume I've did more damage? Welcome back to Evil vs. Evil, Monsters of History. The Tournament of Champions continues. This is Episode 31. Born in Vyatskoye, in the Soviet Union, in 1941, Kim Jong-il was the son of a Korean guerrilla commander training under Stalin's army. His official biography, the one taught in North Korean schools, claims he was born on the slopes of Mount Paektu, the sacred mountain of Korean myth, beneath a double rainbow, while a brand new star appeared in the sky. None of that is true, but the lie itself reveals everything you need to understand about the man. He grew up inside the shadow of his father, Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea. From childhood, Jong-il was groomed for succession. By the 1970s, he was running the country's propaganda machinery. By the 1980s, he was effectively co-ruler. Then he became something stranger. He developed an obsession with cinema. He owned over 20,000 films. He wrote a book on filmmaking theory. He saw movies not as entertainment, but as the most powerful weapon of mass persuasion ever invented. In 1978, he ordered the kidnapping of a famous South Korean film director, Shin Sang-ok, and his ex-wife, the actress Choi Eun-hee, and held them captive in North Korea for 8 years, forcing them to produce propaganda movies for his personal collection. In 1994, he inherited the most isolated country on Earth. His rule began with catastrophe. From 1994 to 1998, North Korea collapsed into a famine known as the Arduous March. Crops failed. The Soviet Union, which had subsidized the country for decades, was gone. Floods devastated what little infrastructure remained. Somewhere between 600,000 and 3.5 million North Koreans starved to death. Reports came out of villages where the dead were left in the streets because the living were too weak to bury them. Kim Jong-il responded by spending the country's remaining resources on nuclear weapons. He built the bomb. He tested it in 2006. He turned a starving nation into a nuclear power, and in doing so, made himself untouchable. The United States could not invade. China could not control him. South Korea could not absorb him. Every plate of food his people did not eat was converted into another centrifuge, another missile, another bargaining chip. Inside North Korea, his control was absolute. The political prison camps, known as Kwanli-so, held an estimated 200,000 people at any given time. Entire families were imprisoned for the crimes of a single member, sometimes for 3 generations. To speak ill of Kim Jong-il was not just a crime. It was a curse passed down to your grandchildren. He died on December 17, 2011, of a heart attack on his private train. State media announced that the mountains themselves cracked in mourning. Mourners who failed to cry hard enough were reportedly sent to the prison camps. His son, Kim Jong-un, took the throne the next day. The regime continues. expanding today. That was Kim Jong-il, the hermit god of the most closed kingdom on earth. Born in Burlington, Vermont in 1946, Theodore Robert Bundy entered the world inside a home for unwed mothers. His mother was 22 and unmarried. The family lied. Ted was raised believing his grandparents were his parents and his mother was his older sister. He did not learn the truth until he was a young man, and when he did, something in him quietly shifted. By adolescence, Ted had developed two parallel identities. On the outside, he was bright, well-spoken, and remarkably handsome. On the inside, he was already a peeping Tom, a thief, and a fantasist who broke into apartments to steal women's underwear and write in their journals. He attended the University of Washington. He studied psychology. He volunteered at a suicide crisis hotline alongside crime writer Anne Rule, who would later describe him as one of the kindest men she had ever met. He worked on political campaigns. He was photographed shaking hands with the governor of Washington. By every visible measure, he was a man with a future. In 1974, that future began to bury bodies. It started in Washington state. Young women, mostly college students with long brown hair parted down the middle, began to vanish. Bundy's method was simple and devastating. He would approach his victims in public, in daylight, sometimes wearing a fake cast or sling, and ask for help carrying something to his car. The request was always small. The trust was almost always granted, and then the trust was repaid with a tire iron to the skull, and a body in the trunk, and a trip to a remote ravine where he would return later to spend time with what he had done. He moved across state lines as the heat closed in. Washington, Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Florida. The bodies kept appearing in shallow graves, dump sites, ravines. Some were never found. He was arrested. He represented himself in court. He escaped twice. He gave interviews from prison. He cultivated fans. He proposed to a woman during his own trial and married her in the courtroom. The second escape took him to Tallahassee, where on the night of January 15th, 1978, he entered the Chi Omega sorority house and attacked 4 women in 15 minutes, killing 2 of them. Weeks later, he abducted 12-year-old Kimberly Leach from her middle school. That was the killing that ended him. He was convicted, and on January 24th, 1989, executed in Florida's electric chair. He confessed to 30 murders before he died. Investigators believe the real number is well over 100, possibly extending back to women he killed as a teenager in Vermont. That was Ted Bundy, the hunter who looked like the man next door. Now let us put these 2 sociopaths side by side in the round of 16. Category 1, body count. Kim Jong-il presided over a regime responsible for between 600,000 and 3.5 million deaths, plus the ongoing operations of prison camps that continue to kill people today. Ted Bundy personally killed 30 confirmed and likely many more, but his total ceiling is in the low hundreds. The edge is Kim, by 4 orders of magnitude. Category 2, charm and concealment. Kim Jong-il's concealment was structural. He hid behind a country, a religion, an army, and a sealed border. Ted Bundy's concealment was personal. He hid behind his own face, a wounded student, a polite stranger, a volunteer at a suicide hotline. The edge in pure individual deception is Bundy. The edge in institutional concealment is Kim. Category 3, method of killing. Kim killed with policy. He signed orders and watched the famine spread on the maps in his briefing rooms. Bundy killed with his hands. He felt the moment of death every time. The edge in scale is Kim. The edge in intimacy is Bundy. Category 4, capacity for greater damage. This is the tournament category. Kim Jong-il was operating at the ceiling of his nation's resources, but his nuclear weapons program is still expanding under his son today. His ceiling is still being raised posthumously. Bundy was caught after just 5 years of killing. Had he never been caught, his ceiling would have been higher, perhaps several hundred victims. But several hundred is not millions. The edge in scaling capacity is Kim. Category 5. Cultural staying power. Kim Jong-il became a global cartoon, mocked in films, on cable television, and across every late-night talk show. Bundy became the prototype for every charming predator in American true crime mythology. The edge in scale of fame is Kim. The edge in pure psychological impact on American culture is Bundy. So the categories split 3-2 in favor of Kim. But categories do not capture everything. Here is the wild card. What if Bundy had been given Kim's resources? A nation, an army, total control. He had the personal charm to manipulate small groups, but he never demonstrated the patience or strategic discipline required to run a state. He probably gets killed in a coup within 5 years. Now, what if Kim had been given Bundy's resources? A car, a fake cast, and a hunting ground of college campuses. He had no personal charisma. He had no physical capability. He was small, sickly, and reportedly afraid of his own bodyguards. He would not have killed anyone with his own hands. The role of dictator was the only one Kim could play. The role of predator was the only one Bundy could play. Strip the costume, and each man becomes nothing. The verdict. Kim Jong-il advances. Ted Bundy is eliminated from the bracket. The decision comes down to scale of damage. Bundy killed 30 people. Kim killed millions, while building an ongoing weapons program that still threatens the security of East Asia today. In a tournament designed to find the most dangerous human being who has ever lived, the dictator who starved a country and pointed nuclear missiles at the rest of the world beats the predator who could only kill what he could fit in his trunk. But here is the part that should disturb you. Ted Bundy is the figure that American culture cannot stop thinking about. There are documentaries, there are dramas, there are Netflix specials and podcast series and books and college courses. Kim Jong-il is treated, in much of the world, as a joke. The killer who killed 30 has become the symbol of American serial murder. The killer who killed millions has become a punchline. Scale, once again, is the costume that hides the worst of us. Kim was the hermit. Bundy was the charmer. Kim Jong-il moves on to the quarterfinals. Ted Bundy is eliminated from the Tournament of Champions and from the bracket entirely. Next episode. The round of 16 concludes. Pol Pot against Richard Ramirez. The polite teacher who emptied a country against the satanic predator who terrorized a city. Round of 16. Match 8.